I just got an email from Commentary Magazine, which I don't I'd have a tough time saying that it is left or right or center. I don't really know, but I get the daily emails from Commentary Magazine in my email account, and there's a writer there, and he has this line in the story that I just opened up. Quote, some observers appear shocked that a candidate who ran on destabilizing the American political equilibrium has delivered instability, unquote. But the writer goes on to say, and he says that the Republican moment may have been lost because of all of the recent controversies surrounding the White House. And yet we spoke with Representative Raul Labrador last hour who said, well, business is going to go on. To be honest with you, when you look at the bill that Labrador and some of his colleagues, and that was Representative Goodlatte, who's his co-sponsor on this, who's a congressman from Virginia, they're going to have a hearing on this within a week, and then they may move ahead, and that could change, tighten up immigration laws in this country for years to come. And if media is paying no attention to that because they're chasing the president around and every supposed scandal around, maybe that's a good thing. Now, Representative Labrador didn't say that. That's my own judgment. What he said was he wishes the president would stay away from Twitter a little bit more, maybe for good. But I think that people out there who are getting most upset about Donald Trump and saying, well, he's been disruptive. Exactly. I had an email from a friend shortly after the election who said, that's why I voted for him. Because I wanted him to go in there and just start kicking the legs out from tables. Now, the deep state, along with its allies and the DNC and media, is kicking back. That's obvious. I heard a figure this morning on Fox and Friends. I was just getting ready to go out the door, getting my shoes on and trying to fend the cat off. I got a cat that no matter if I'm untying shoes or tying shoes, just the sound of that, he picks that up. He can be in another room and he comes out because he thinks it's time to play. And so I'm constantly walking around with scratched fingers. So I was trying to get my shoes tied without him tearing me to pieces. And they were mentioning on Fox News that out of these White House jobs, there's a couple of thousand of them. That doesn't surprise me. Now, not everybody's working within the building, but in the immediate administrative system, there's a couple of thousand jobs, and only 60 Trump appointees are on the job so far, which means, and I'm 2,000 was the number I believed I heard. That would mean that 1,940 Obama holdovers are still working in the White House. And you wonder why these people are running around and maybe even making things up and then sharing it with the Washington Post and New York Times because they don't like the man. They thought their girl Hillary Clinton was going to be there, and she's not, and it's galling them. And the only thing they can do, like a little kid who can't get the candy when you're pushing them through the checkout, is lash out. And that's exactly what they're up to. Meanwhile, I heard another comment on Fox last night. Trey Gowdy was a guest on Martha McCallum's program, along with, I think, Bill Bennett, who complimented Jim Risch, who was a guest on the program. Bill Bennett went so far as to say, I wish I was in Idaho right now. He said, because those people there, they really know what the world's all about. Something, I'm not quoting him, but I'm paraphrasing him. He was complimenting the people here for being so level-headed. And Gowdy referenced Jason Chaffetz, who he said was making some comments about this. And Gowdy says, I thought he was at home recuperating. He had foot surgery done. I'll mention that in a minute. I want to get to the telephones. Number to reach our program, 736-0300. That's 736-0300. Caller, you're up next. You're on KLIX.
Good morning, Bill. This is starting to remind me of college students and other things like that where they don't get the grade they want, so they start making up stuff about their teacher just to get their teacher in trouble and everything else. Well, our Democrats are doing the same thing. They didn't win the White House, so they're making stuff up. I mean, I've had little arguments with family members on Facebook because they believe everything they hear on the alphabet soup. So I asked them a simple question. I says, everything you talked about, there was something wrong in all the situations. But what was the common thread? Well, I got no answer because they don't have the answer. The answer is leaks. The leaks are the common thread since inauguration that's been a problem. Those are law-breaking situations. so far, everything they've complained about may be an annoyance, may be a lot of things, but illegal is not.
But try and
And
even catch them, even if they tried, even if they, they put a tap on the phones in the White House and the executive office building, then the media would scream that that was Nixonian. Even if you identified the people, then media would come to the defense. Media is not going to turn them over, but media would come to the defense and say Donald Trump is being heavy-handed and petulant because he doesn't like people making up things about him.
well, I think that what's even worse is what they need to realize, and everybody needs to realize, is everything Chuck Schumer and all those guys are jumping up and down and screaming about. Obama has done 10 times, 50 times, 100 times over, never with an ounce of boo.
On the
Now, all of a
major,
sudden, they're just going nuts.
they pretty much at CNN and MSDNC last night had guests on the air who immediately started explaining that Mr. Obama was giving classified information to the Russians less than a year ago. And you know what happened on those two networks? They moved on. They got those guests off the air as quickly as they could.
That's my point. These guys, what they don't see is the people that voted for Trump are seeing that hypocrisy even more and passing it on to more and more people because they're going, okay, you guys are complaining about this, but what about when this happened when it was a guy by a different name? It was okay then, but it's not now. There's
Well,
things that Trump does I don't like either, and I didn't like it when Obama did it, but it is what it is.
I thank you much for the call. We're going to see if we can squeeze another voice on the air with us. You're up next. It's 9:13, and you're on KLIX. Go ahead. Well, you were pretty close to being on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Telephone number 736-0300. We're at 38. Gives me a chance to do my little weather spiel. Cold today, obviously. We had snow earlier this morning, and some places may see some more flurries coming up. But I should point out the forecast over the next several days, back into the upper 50s tomorrow, upper 60s Friday, and then a string of days just moving on through the 70s up until the middle 80s by the middle of next week. So it looks like we finally crossed the hump. And the weather is a service of Mountain Home Auto Ranch in Mountain Home. I referenced Jason Chaffetz, and I'll get to him. I do want to try to squeeze one more caller in this segment. You're on the air, and you're up next.
Hey, on this thing that this morning on CBS, of course, but they were talking about the Republicans were going against Trump now. So I had to watch that, and it was Mr. Magoo, John McCain, and some of those other, like him. But they were saying this is like Watergate, and I'm going, what?
Well, here's the thing about McCain. 2 days ago, he was saying, no, Trump's got to go. And then yesterday, he said, oh, well, it appears that nothing really bad happened. Oh, and then today, oh, Trump's got to go. This guy is just blowing whatever direction the wind is going.
Exactly. But Donald Trump has got to do something about the establishment. They're the ones that's going to fight him until the last day.
Well, they're fighting us if that's the case.
That's right.
I thank you much for the call. I wrote a column about this in the Times News yesterday, if you happen to see it, really identifying that spot on, and the elites who continue to believe that they're going to keep their heels on our faces for the remainder of our lives may have another thing coming. This was just the first salvo this past November. There may be more on the way. Jason Chaffetz, who's been one of those Republicans who's been no friend of the president at times, I say at times, he's recuperating at home after having foot surgery done. He's telling the Fox News Channel he wants Jim Comey to come clean if Comey actually indeed kept memos or written. He supposedly wrote down the nature of each conversation he had with the president.
If I need to issue a subpoena, I'll issue a subpoena, but I think they'll cooperate. And I think if those memos are there, I think they'll turn them over. Let's see if the documentation is there. Then we need to talk to the person who wrote those, and that would be Director Comey, and to get his take on it. Whether that's a public hearing or we talk behind the scenes, I'm not quite sure yet, but we're going to let the facts take us where they are, and the first step is finding out if it's true that there truly are these memos.
I'm going to cut that off there. If you're a member, well-heeled member of the House of Representatives, can you afford a better telephone? He's talking from his house in Utah, apparently, after surgery. You're up next, and you're on the air on KLIX with Bill Colley. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. Your last caller was pretty well correct, but the thing you've got to remember, when you're talking about Republicans, and this is probably 80% of them, they go with the wind. You look at the Democrats; they will not turn on themselves. That ain't happening for any reason. Republicans, it depends on which way the wind's blowing. People say, well, it's because they're honest. No, it's because they want to impress people. They want votes. And until the Republicans get this figured out, we're in deep, deep trouble.
Well, I'll give you a good example of that. Mike Simpson went to a healthcare forum in Boise yesterday, and there were protesters outside, liberal protesters. Simpson then got up in front of the crowd and said, well, the only reason he voted for the latest change in the healthcare, national healthcare, was because he doesn't expect it to pass, but it gets us in the right direction. So, in other words, I voted for it, but I was against it, and I hope that appeases all of the leftists outside.
Well, see, that's exactly right, and that's why I've never voted for Simpson. And I've got a stack of letters from home from his office every time I called his office, thanking me for calling. But the guy, he's one of the biggest liars in the country. And how the man keeps getting voted in is beyond me. I just can't imagine. But you look what's going on. You go back to Hillary with her emails. She had email servers. Let's go to Benghazi. Let's talk Benghazi. 4 dead Americans. Every time the Democrats would get in trouble, well, no, we just need to move on. We need to move the country on. Well, see, what's wrong with the Democrats now is they had about 50% of the country following in lockstep behind them because they're giving them welfare, giving them food stamps, giving them all this crap. Well, guess what? The Americans showed them last November, like you were just saying, that we ain't going for this crap no more. We ain't going to do it. And see, the Republicans then back in Washington need to pull their heads out of their arse and realize that all they're doing is making us mad. Grow a pair, stand up. If you don't want to do it, send somebody like Bill, send somebody like me. I'll go back to Washington. I don't care about Nancy Pelosi. The only thing that scares me with her is her looks. And she can go get me a beer, make me a sandwich, and shut up. She's going to listen to the real people. We are the real people.
I got to thank you on that note. I got a break coming up in a moment. I wouldn't trust Nancy Pelosi, though, getting my beer for me. Well, where she comes from, it's called National Bohemian. That stuff will rot your innards out. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. I've got a short break coming up. I just wanted to point out tomorrow, those of you who are struggling perhaps with hearing health, you have an opportunity to attend a get-together. And I'm going to tell you that it's being sponsored by a doctor of audiology, Dr. Christine Pickup from Mount Harrison Audiology in Rupert. And they're doing a seminar and lunch at the Minnetonka Chamber of Commerce in Hayburn at noon tomorrow. She'll be sharing details on hearing health, brain health, and current technology advances. If you'd like to attend, RSVP, that is by calling 208-312-0957. That's 208-312-0957. We've got more on the way in a couple of minutes. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Previous caller brought up something that I've thought about a lot, and he points out that you've got a lot of Republicans, and it seems that they just try and appease liberal media. And again, I've said this frequently on this program. If you're a politician, you read the op-ed pages in newspapers. You do that because you think everybody else is doing it. And, of course, the op-ed pages are usually about you, so you're worried about how you're portrayed. And they've got to break themselves. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he's trying to create in his part of the country. I tried it 5 years ago. He's trying to do it now as well. He's trying to replicate something I tried. And he's gone to some of the local leaders in the Republican Party, more so the conservative movement, and said, if you're that unhappy with press coverage, then find some people who have some money and get behind a media project here. And immediately the guy said, well, I have some friends who'd like to try and buy a newspaper. Newspaper? My gosh, you're talking technology that is 700 or 800 years old. Why don't you go with something more? Even radio's a century old now. Television is coming up on a century old. You've got internet you could get behind, but still, I'll put it this way. The best way to get a message, and research backs me up, the best way to get a message across is local radio. But here's the thing. The company that owns us, now we do a conservative talk radio show here. We do several throughout the day. But if they made money by playing polkas on the air, they'd play polkas. And that's they're capitalists first, and that's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But over the years, I've talked to so many conservatives and Republicans saying, well, then put your money where your mouth is. And you know what the answer always is? Well, gee, I don't know about that. We don't want to get involved. Well, then stop complaining and belly aching about the treatment you get from mainstream media. Even in Washington, the Washington Examiner and the Washington Times, which are the mouthpieces for the conservative movement in that town, the big ones, their readership is minuscule compared to the Washington Post. And they're hanging. The Times nearly went under from bankruptcy a few years ago. We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX with Bill Colley. Go ahead.
Well, let's face it, talk radio is instrumental in getting Trump elected, and Fox News, but only, certain people on Fox News. And, people are smart. Okay, let's say there's 60-plus million people that seem to be able to figure this out, and it's growing because nobody's being fooled by this media that is, whatever you want to call them. They are truly insane, and they're fooling no one that I can see. And so, I think that the Trump, they understand that he's being barraged, and it's not hard to see it. And so I think that, like you say, I don't know how many listeners you have, but there's talk shows around the valley, and they're very effective, and the people are very loyal, and thank God we have them. I'll hang up.
Yeah, Zeb Bell and Steve Mitten are doing shows on a local level here in the valley as well, and these people are really attuned to what their listeners are talking about. That's why they've been on the air for so long. They're able to. All you got to do is walk into a local diner and listen to the conversation, and you'll pick it up really fast. And it's a reflection, and that's what a good talk show host is doing, is reflecting that. And the powers that be often don't like it, but it's like, good grief, this idea, this top-down management idea you all preach a good game about, having the grassroots get involved. Why bother with primaries and caucus if you really don't believe in it? 27 minutes after 9 o'clock. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Some of you may have had the furnace on today. It snowed earlier, as I mentioned, and I do want to point out it's likely done. And now you're going to start thinking about cooling your home. I know that sounds odd when it's 38 degrees out, but by the time we get to the middle of next week and it's 85, you'll be thinking about cooling your home. And you need to call the pros. If you haven't tested that air conditioner out yet, do that. Find out if it's working. And if it's not working as well as it should, or it's not working at all, call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric. They'll come out. They'll get the job done right. They'll get it done right the first time. Problem-free, cozy winters and also cool summers are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Telephone number 678-0459. That's 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric. They sell warm winters and cool summers. You're up next. You're on the air. We've got about 90 seconds before the break. Go ahead.
Hey, Bill, as far as I can see, it's having some effect, because if you notice the elections yesterday, there was very few voters going out there and voting. So I don't know. I think it's having an effect, all this Trump deal. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, yesterday's election wasn't too well publicized. I'll point that out. I should also note, too, that in, I think it was down in North Carolina, there was an election yesterday where the Republican Party tried to get away from a candidate who was trying to ride the coattails of Donald Trump. And the candidate who was riding Trump's coattails actually won in the primary against the establishment Republican who was backed by Wall Street money in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And I was reading about that at the website The Resurgent this morning. So this is what media does. Media says they run out to Kansas and they say, a special election will prove that Donald Trump does not have the confidence of the American people. Oh, wait a minute, the Republican won. Oh, well, let's move on to Georgia. Georgia special election will prove Donald Trump. Oh. Well, okay, let's move on. And they keep doing this, and they keep doing this, and they keep doing this. And so Ralph Norman was the fellow's name. He was running and said he would be a member of the House Freedom Caucus. That's Labrador's group, by the way. in Washington, and he won the primary and likely in his district will go on and win the general election. Uh, so again, it shows you that media still hasn't figured out middle America, probably never will. That's Main Street media, I should point out. Intelligent media, on the other hand, we did it a long time ago. One more half hour of the program is just ahead. One of the fastest moving shows in radio feels today like feels like my life is just flying by. For long, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The old joke Andy Griffith used to tell about the little boy who came out and asked him about the meaning of ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And Andy explains it all to him. And then Andy says, "But why do you ask?" And the kid says, "Well, Pa," he says, "there's somebody under my bed and either he's coming or gone." 9:34, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, newsradio1310.com. Let's see if we've got a caller here on line one. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning. Well, maybe not. Sometimes when you reach for the phone, there's that rollover line we have. If you're on the line a while and it'll roll over. You're up next. You're on the air on KLIX. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the last things Labrador said was Trump was using the Twitter to go on defense. He should stop going on defense and go on offense. If he'd get that special prosecutor to go after Comey and get all that information, he could find out why Loretta Lynch was on that plane and why she told him to stand down and all the other good stuff. And then he can go after all those other people. And if he causes all that trouble, the Democrats will be so busy on defense, they'll stop coming after him.
Well said. And we didn't get a chance to talk to him about it while he was here in studio yesterday. We ran out of time. Prosecuting Attorney Grant Lobes from Twin Falls County was our guest in the second hour of the show yesterday. And we had Comey on the list of subjects we were going to talk about. Didn't get to it. But before he left the building, he was telling me, he said, there's absolutely no way, after Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac, that Comey came forward because he thought he had to come forward on that matter. And Mr. Loeb said to me on his way out the door, he said, but don't forget he worked for Loretta Lynch. And the fact that he came out and he pretty much said Hillary Clinton committed a crime, but he said no one out there in their right mind would prosecute. Well, that's not a decision he could make. That comes because of pressure from James Comey's boss at the time, who happened to be Loretta Lynch. Speaking of that, Trey Gowdy, appearing with Martha McCallum last night, had hinted that he knows a lot more about that situation and that something very sinister was going on at the time.
But I think history is going to be much kinder to Jim Comey in that July press conference than the Democrats were when he had it. I think he had access to information that, because he is a stand-up guy and he's not going to disseminate classified information, although God knows everybody else is, he's not going to do it, even if it casts him in a negative light. So all your viewers see is this meeting on the tarmac. Jim Comey had access to additional information that I am convinced left him with no other choice than to make the decision he made in July.
So you're saying he had no choice? There was pressure on him to not prosecute Hillary Clinton? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I think he had access to information and he wanted to safeguard the integrity of the investigation and the integrity of the process. And I probably ought to just leave it right there. But no, I'm not talking about pressure. I don't think the guy feels pressure. I think he wanted the public to have confidence in the investigation and the outcome. Even though I disagreed with the outcome, he wanted you to have confidence in the process. He had access to information that your viewers don't have, and they may not ever have because it is classified. But trust me when I tell you this, Martha, I know what it was. And I have been a critic of Jim Comey in the past. But he made the only decision he could have made with respect to appropriating that decision away from the Department of Justice and making the decision himself. And history will be a hell of a lot kinder to him than the Democrats were at the time.
Now, in other words, he didn't feel pressure, meaning that he wasn't worried that Loretta Lynch would fire him. So he came out and he knew Loretta Lynch wouldn't prosecute, which is why he came up with that line, nobody would prosecute this case. But that's why he called the news conference, was to put it on record. Hillary Clinton broke the law. Hillary Clinton is an arch criminal. He came out and he stated that, hoping that voters could make up their own minds at that point. And he could have been fired at the time. He wasn't, because I think that the Obama White House would have realized this will look really bad and it will help Donald Trump out. And they figured they had a slam dunk against Trump. So that didn't happen. You think about that for a moment. So Mr. Comey decided, I'm not going to worry what the fallout is. I'm going to at least let people know what I have. And then they can make up their own minds, make up their own judgment. Coming up on 9:39. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 38. A week from today, we'll be looking at temperatures in the middle 80s. So cheer up. Also wanted to mention, if you're looking for someone out there who can help you plan for those days when you may no longer be working or you may have other issues, you want to put some money away for kids to go to college, I'd like to recommend you give our friends at Waddell & Reed a shout. They've been in business now since 1937. Waddell & Reed is one of the oldest investment firms to offer mutual funds. In fact, Waddell & Reed owns and manages 2 mutual fund families, investing by a conservative nature. Do they know what they're doing? Again, in business now 8 decades. They'll take a planning approach and look at each piece of the puzzle for each individual client to meet your goals and your needs. Waddell & Reed will help you manage money, and Waddell & Reed takes planning personally. Short break, more of our program coming up. I've been telling you lately that we're going to be paying, well, we're not going to be paying through the nose for gasoline for the foreseeable future. Unless, of course, somebody decides to smoke Tehran or, I don't know, Pyongyang might not matter. But I've got details on that on the way in just a couple of minutes.